thank you so much for coming in and taking out some time, and really appreciate all of you from different parts of the world and different parts of India joining us within the session that we have defined, and really excited to have all of you guys here. All of you are senior HR partners, leaders, also really people who have really held the flag in their respective areas to make sure that how the practice itself really shines in the eyes of business. I thought I will go back today, and while I will introduce each one of you within leading your functions, maybe I'll let the ball be on your side and let the question flow on the fact that what really does the fundamental play of being a great professional HR really mean as you have chosen that function. I know it culminates to really being a part of the business and being the business itself, but it will be interesting to hear your perspective on what it means, and we will move into further on the core conversation about what does today building mean, and building not only people, which is cross-border, but building in terms of how businesses today expect the HR fraternity to come together and be the ambassador for culture, growth, and also potential investments, because HRs today have seat in terms of the first visibility of new investments that are coming in. I'll start with Tojo because I know he's done some fantastic work between not only professional companies, but also with large family houses, making the transition, helping them grow from the second generation to the third generation to the fourth generation, but also being an integral part of how organizations build the entire platform of success. So please, Tojo, why don't you take the lead?
Yep. Thanks a lot. Thanks, Pranav. And as I mentioned earlier, greetings from God's own country, from deep down south in India, Kochi. Pleasure to be here with all of you. Yeah, so it's a very important point that Pranav raised in terms of what constitutes or what defines a HR professional. So for me, the last 1.5 years or 2 years, ever since the COVID has started, has been a very transformative kind of time for HR function. And at the end of the day, I would sort of sum it up in 3 words, and that's my favorite. I've been talking about it a lot, which is ECG. ECG should define a human resources professional. ECG is nothing but empathy, compassion, and gratitude. When you take that to your employees, that's the connect that people are looking for. When that happens, then magic begins to happen. For example, the last company that I was associated with, a company which is 135 years old, and as Pranav was saying, in the process of transitioning in the fourth generation into the company. So the whole ethos and the whole DNA of even the promoter family is to ensure, because the company that I lead, or the flagship company that I used to lead, was a financial services company. Our target customer base was people at the bottom of the pyramid, our less well-to-do brothers and sisters for whom financial inclusion was our what we were taking to market. And all the more reason that if we were to define it in the framework of ECG, that is empathy, compassion, and gratitude, then magic begins to happen within the organization, as also the connect with the customers, the target customer base that we are trying to work with and bring about the change. The purpose that Pranav spoke about, it's so important in the days, in this post-COVID days, extremely important, and that's what we are trying to sort of do. So back to you, Pranav.
I want to plug your thought. I know what is the key objective of transformation and really being the ambassador when you are building the first fundamental brand for the organization. You have brand one, which people often know about your product, which needs to be externalized, but you have, I think, brand -1, which is the most important, which is the fundamental brand of having the right people in. And the HR plays a pivotal role to really be the ambassador to be that. And I use -1 in the timesheet because it's often not spoken about. And love to hear from you that what has been your experiences on creating that brand and creating the fundamental strength on which large, even startups today stand on. And I think that becomes a core of the way we operate and succeed and want to succeed in future.
Yeah, I take it, Pranav.
No, I thought.
Sorry, I'm so
Yes,
sorry. Yeah.
thank you, Pranav. So yes, you're absolutely right. Having the right people at right places is fundamental. And now more than ever, many companies understand that, because we saw this sad event last year where many companies had to say goodbye to many people because of COVID. And this year, as the economy takes back, we see a lot of hiring. And I would say that hiring is maybe the most important part out of all the human resources management chain, because when you hire right people, you have a way less work to do afterwards in training them, in fitting them to the right positions, shaping the right teams, managing conflicts because something's going on, etc. So that's where we're putting a lot of efforts. And one of the ways of doing that is by building the right HR strategies, seeing not only what kind of people a company needs this month, but maybe in 6 months' time, and even in 1 year's time, and maybe in 2 years' time, because when we're speaking especially about middle and large size of companies, you can just rotate people, right? You can build their talent career evolution plan. You can see what exactly people skills the company is going to need in a certain time, and you can see what kind of those skills are missing today in the company, whom you can train, what people have the potential to grow in that direction, and what you are really missing, and then you go to the outside market looking for right talents. One of the most important aspects in hiring is probably soft skills. Why? Because soft skills are basically a key for becoming successful of a person on such and such position. You can learn hard skills, you can learn, I don't know, math, engineering, or whatever, you name it, but without proper soft skills, you will not be able to apply that. Or if you apply that today, maybe you will not be able to apply that tomorrow or build some more skills. If a person is not curious enough, for example, or if a person doesn't know how to put right questions, well, they might be successful today, but something pops up, something which is out of standard procedure, and here they are lost. So we're putting a lot attention to that. Unfortunately, traditional way of soft skill evaluation is maybe not effective enough. That's why we're building this new software tool in soft skill assessment. We're very excited about that because this is something very new on the market. It's a VR gamified way to see how people act in the real life. And then we're screening them and become able to predict
Interesting.
to become tomorrow.
Rama, I want to pick your mind on that. And you spent a lot of time, initial part of your life, last couple of decades back. You were with Vedanta, which was going through a transition from a classical old firm to a new firm. And you spent a couple of years there where you probably were key part of the transition of the culture. And then you've been with IDFC building that culture perspective. I'm just curious to understand from you that what Ina said, that the fundamental purpose of identifying or hiring someone is making sure that that objective is met. It's not just the headcount. The fundamental play when you are building teams and objectifying success, aligning to what Ina said, that if you hire the right person, it makes your life easier, business go better. What has been your areas of choice, specifically not in the hard way, but in the softer side, which you feel is non-negotiable in today's world?
Yeah, I think my exposure in Vedanta versus say in IDFC versus what I'm doing right now at Home First has in itself undergone a lot of change. So what was relevant in 2005 may not be relevant in 2021. Yeah. So while I draw a lot
changes
of
quickly.
Yeah, life has changed very, very quickly for me. But while I draw a lot of inspiration from what an old world firm, a public sector undertaking, which was taken over by a private company, could achieve in terms of cultural transformation, in terms of building an organization which is striving for success, while the majority of the population there was nearing retirement. So even in an organization like that, if you can drive success using the right talent, using just identifying the right set of people in the right positions, I think that becomes the most critical. So where can you drive that transformation? What are those key positions, rather than trying to fill everything with everybody? I mean, there is always that tendency to when you're driving transformation to do a lot of things, and then or you believe that what is already there is all wrong. That is something that people often go wrong with, saying, I have to change, therefore I have to change everybody, because people fundamentally don't want to change very quickly. So the best way to achieve this is change all of them, get a new set of people. So my experience both in Vedanta as well as in IDFC was that it's about key positions. It's not about changing wholesale, but changing in the right places, getting the right set of people in. Different experiences always help. If you get the same set of people from another organization and then try to plug them in, the people inside never see value. So if you're bringing in somebody, bring them with a very different skill set, bring them with a different exposure and experience, and that person, once they come in, are able to complement the skills that are already there, and then drive change. Then just make it. It all starts setting in beautifully, rather than creating a lot of conflict. While change will create conflict, it is not something that can overnight turn around. And maybe the way I'm talking about it sounds very rosy, but it's a lot of dirty work. I mean, you would experiment, you would fail 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, and then you get this right. But like I said, I'm kind of drawing inferences from what I've gone through.
I understand that well, working with you in various aspects, and we'll build that across later after the piece.
Sure.
Kimberly, I want to pick this up from you. You've worked in wild multinational ecosystems and organizations that have grown to be really the brand for the industry itself. But you also have worked in an environment where growing the local talent became a necessity and not a choice, right? While today choose a lot of decisions on objectivity, but you've consistently approached building teams not only because the build was available to you, but because the build was not available. How have
I didn't hear you. I didn't hear you. Sorry. I didn't hear the last bit. Sorry.
The build was not available to you. I said you were building teams when things were often not available to you. In that sense, keeping in mind, you were in an industry which was growing from an infancy, specifically from a skill side of it. How have you built teams? How have you built teams and been successful at it?
Okay. Thank you for that. That's an interesting question, certainly, and very pertinent. What a lot of people don't actually know about me is that I have multifaceted global work experience in different industries and different roles. Yeah. And that has helped me immensely, I feel, when I've been sourcing or trying to build talent in areas where, necessarily the industry has not been that evolved, as you've said, right? Because television, for example, in 2007 was a very different ballgame to what it is today. There was no question of OTT, which is the digital space, obviously. And the way we did things, we had cable networks and distribution as a huge part of our lives, which is practically non-existent today. So I think what we look for then is adaptability, resilience. We look for people who are not afraid to fail, right? Those are three things, three qualities I feel that I continue to seek. It's not so much about the gentleman spoke about hiring teams, and then that happens a lot. It happens in the financials with my financial clients. It happens in the media, but there's a comfort level, and I'll bring my team along, and we'll just recreate the magic. And that is something I don't necessarily always agree with. I liked to stir it up a bit. I like creating mixes and influxing new talent in a lot of the time. I think cross-functional has probably happened in teams that I've been a part of way before we've kind of evolved into it. It's happened before its time, perhaps, but it has worked.
Yeah. So, Ketan, I'm going to pick it up. Ketan, I'm going to pick your thoughts on this. I know you've also evolved into various challenges, both during COVID and also in an industry which is a category in itself. How have you potentially looked at creating a niche of being an ambassador and attracting talent where a lot of these people are also ideating at the lower level what is right and what is wrong, and if Reto Mojo is a place which builds lives and careers, how do you give them the comfort of building that as a value, and what has been your success mantra? Because I know you're doing a fantastic job.
Sure, thanks Pranav for putting that up. In fact, the answer to this could be in two phases. There is a lot that we aspired to do, we started to do, and then COVID happened. So everything and a lot of things that we had that we wanted actually went out of the window.
Okay.
Absolutely, because I think that's a time when survival of the humankind and the survival of businesses became the priority. Some interesting thing that I saw was that that's a time when empathy actually came out across organizations, not only ours. We are fortunate we've been able to hold on few things. We were blessed in that way to not allow people move out of organization. We could manage that. But in fact, right now, if you ask me, we are revisiting and rebuilding and re-identifying what actually is needed. And glad that you picked up a topic around now the organizations are boundaryless, borderless, right? What happens to talent? I think I don't have an answer, right? I'm still trying to figure out how the organization is going to evolve, and also simultaneously look at what is going to the workforce now. There is an operating workforce. There are some changes there, but it is not that complicated to solve for. But when it comes to the central workforce, when it comes to the goals, when it comes to design goals, corporate of the central goals, a lot of change. A lot absolutely has changed. We are seeing trends towards work on demand. We're seeing trends towards people wanting to do a lot more than their regular work. Still evolving. I don't have a very specific answer. In fact, today's conversation will give me a lot of insights on what's happening across countries, globes, markets, industry, and to exchange some ideas of how actually I can pick few from there and share what we have been doing and how we can add value to others. So
yeah. So Toja, Ketan already picked up the conversation which I wanted to take it, and I wanted to ask, I'm going to flip it the other way around. Both we started with talking about volume and how skill is important, and sometimes skill just is not available and we need to build it. I'm just going to revolve it the other way, that when you are building leadership, and that skill is internally not available, how do you benchmark leaders that are within the ecosystem? Because today we see that within our family offices that the earlier approach of going to the West and getting the so-called subject matter experts is changing because there are enough global talent available in Asia as well, and including Africa, Middle East, Southeast Asia, with experiences of commerce, understanding, and also a global orientation. As someone who has led this transformation, when a problem of redefining the top layer comes, what are the views from your mind that come immediately to address that issue?
Yeah, thanks, Pranav. So, very interesting question, and something which one has been sort of grappling with in the last couple of organizations that I was fortunate enough to be a part of, as well as the transformation journey that we undertook in these organizations. So, one of the key, and that's what I've noticed as a success mantra, so to say, are the leaders walking the talk? For example, from a cultural perspective, the last organization that I worked for, we had very clearly defined our culture. It's ICE, as in integrity, collaboration, excellence. Are we demonstrating ICE? Are the leaders walking the talk? So when these aspects of walking the talk, demonstrating that they mean business, so it's not something which is framed and kept on the walls of the offices, the rest of it becomes very easy. You know, the hard skill, as we spoke about earlier, we can even get people experts to come in and drive that. But the softer aspects, are the leaders demonstrating what they talk about, or are the leaders living the core values that is exposed by the company? That makes a big difference. So that's what I found to be very success, as I mentioned earlier, success mantra, wherein if the leadership team is focused on the core values, if they're demonstrating it, if they're living it, then the hard aspects of it, of delivering what requires to be done, becomes very easy, because that's an expertise that we can call upon from even outside. So that's really the thing that I would sort of definitely recommend and strongly endorse, basis my experience in the last couple of organizations where we have driven this.
Yeah. Rama, how is it that you have specifically looked at augmenting leadership, keeping in mind that transformation comes from the top, and how is value building that as an ecosystem? I see Sandeep in. Thank you, Sandeep, for joining in. But yeah, Rama, give me perspective on how you have looked at building the core team, because I'll assume that your teams would be also relatively young. So what does leadership evaluation at a young age mean, and how do you choose that? Because that in a relatively newer industry, you have age falling down significantly, compensation going up, and how is it that you are defining that piece? And is there a magic about variable stock options? How do you address those ecosystems, especially out of expectations?
Yeah, I think the last bit was very interesting. The expectations, because that is what defines a lot of stuff. When you look at a position, a leadership position, 2 or 3 things that define them. One is, what's the kind of compensation that I will be offered? What's the kind of role that I will be offered? The kind of independence, the kind of ability to take decisions. Can I be the one who's driving some of the aspects of the organization? How independent I will be versus how dependent I will be on the other people within the larger ecosystem in the organization. And the third and most important thing is the kind of flexibility and freedom. So I think as I've progressed within organizations, I mean, I started my career with the oldest organization, and I kind of come down to an organization which is the youngest in my career now. I've seen that the aspects of leadership change. So today it is all about flexibility. Today it is about I had very senior person in my organization, precisely from the everything else being the same, the person chose to come to us because we are in a city which where the air quality index is much better than the city that the person was already living. I mean, I won't vouch for Mumbai so much, but it is better than where he was living before. So I mean, you never know what will drive somebody. I think understanding that expectation and trying to build your value proposition around that expectation becomes the very fundamental aspect of trying to hire leadership talent, because it is unique for them, and it may not be available in abundance otherwise. So, for example, somebody who's looking at long term, can you give more options than cash to that person? Whereas for another person who's looking at it a little more short term, and whether you want to buy that talent at this point in time, that's a big if. And then how do you curate the compensation for that person? So it is becoming very unique. It is becoming very simple things also. I think some of the times we try and complicate a lot of stuff around the whole leadership hiring or some of these pieces. I mean, what we forget is just to ask that person. Once you ask, and this is something that I also learned it the hard way. Once you go and ask that person, the ask is very simple. The expectation, what you said, is very simple, and you should be able to meet it very easily. But because you're trying to guess what the other person needs, you're trying to create a very complicated structure. You're creating 5-year plans. You're creating so many other things. But that person, all he or she wanted was admission for their kid in school. You solve that, the person is yours.
Yes, interesting.
Just going all
Sandeep,
around.
I'm going to plug you in, Sandeep. Welcome, and love to have you speak about how leadership augmentation means to you and how you have defined within various companies, Indian, Korean, and back to Indian now, in some ways or the other. What has been your magic of getting people at tough spots when you identify people across the world, and how is it that you have played the critical ingredient to succeed? I don't want you to take my name, but nevertheless.
Thank you. Thank you, Pranav. And hi, everyone. I was listening to your all critical insights into the leadership development and talent management. So, Pranav, I'll really second what Kimberly spoke about: adaptability, flexibility, and resilience, and especially in times of COVID pandemic. So, what is very important for someone to succeed, especially very relevant for leaders, is to show resilience, because as Mr. Tojo Joes spoke about, it's walk the talk. So leaders have to walk the talk, and they have to show the resilience for people to really follow them and succeed in their task. Some very critical things which we have focused on while developing our leaders have been, setting a big picture and seeing how their goals align with the organizational goals, and how they fulfill their career aspirations, which eventually leads to achievement of organizational objectives. So marrying both the things is very critical, and having the right balance of their aspirations and the organizational objectives. Secondly, for leaders, I would agree with Mr. Joes. They have to demonstrate their ability to walk the talk. They have to be role models, lead by examples, and especially in these times, resilience and agility is something which comes very important for anybody to succeed.
Yeah. Ketan, would you want to highlight some areas of how you have managed today, how you have been able to build? I'm sure you have talent from cross borders who have reached out to you today on new age technology hires. How have you dealt with environments of compensation mismatches, attitude mismatches, but you still like them to be on board? Areas that you need to be more flexible than normal. What have been some of these things which has helped you take notice, which earlier you may not have agreed to, but today you think it is far more acceptable, the area that we are, keeping in mind the agenda of focus?
Sure. So two things. One, something that I've learned, and this is what sports has also taught me. It's very important to understand: are you playing a T20 or an IPL or a Test match or a one day, and what level are you playing? I would not discount that. It's extremely important. Now, what it does, it changes the context of what kind of leader do you want for that movement. And when I say leader, it's not about changing the person, but the personality, the thinking. What is needed, required for an organization? Now, we've just seen Virat Kohli giving up one form of the cricket because he believes that he needs to focus on something else, and somebody else, Rohit Sharma, has to come in and pick it up, right? So I firmly believe that the strategy to situation, even in leadership, is an extremely important part. Now, interestingly, even when it comes to matters like compensation or the overall employee experience. Now, what my belief is, and thanks to data and thanks to technology, and Rama did mention about this has to move towards personalization. And that's the power of data and technology today. That's the changing landscape for human resources as a function, where we have to start thinking as a product manager who understands technology, understands business, and bring it together to solve for it. Now, I may get a talent which is whose aspiration would be completely to build $1 billion company and exit with a lot of stock options. He or she would actually talk about it. And I think somebody said here, right, that go and ask, and that's the most powerful thing to do. Ask the person, understand. You tell what the organization needs, what the individual needs, and it's about how do you bring it together to solve for it. And again, coming back to technology and data, this is making this entire personalization very, very doable now. Or I would say it is about scalability of personalization is what technology is driving, and this is going to stay. Thanks to COVID, in a way, it pushed us think differently and start adopting things that we were otherwise not. So, be it technology, be it talent, be it location, be it engagement, any dimension. I think adding personalization at scale is where I believe the entire ecosystem would move. And that's exactly what the millennials and the Gen Zs and the generation which will keep on shifting now 10 years going to bring as a challenge. So that's
fantastic conversation. I want to end it with a quick story, and your conversation reminding me of that there is this man who is air ballooning and he is lost in the clouds, and he sees a person just below and he shouts at him and he says, "Do you know where I am?" And he said that you are 40 degrees north, 35 degrees south, 4th degree latitude. So the gentleman on top looks bewildered in the balloon, and he says, "Are you an engineer?" And he says, "Yes, I am." He says, "No wonder you are giving this data, and which makes no sense to me." So the gentleman on the ground tells him that you must be a manager, and he says, how do you know that?" He says, "You are lost, you're asking help from me, and for some reason your problem has become my problem." So I think communication is critical. I think it's just extremely important to just lay things, and I'm just summarizing our conversation. It's just sometimes simplicity in the conversation, getting to know the expectations, as honestly as we can to drive these problems and address the world today as one. And I think that will address the challenge of cross-border ecosystems. Thank you so much for being here, and I wish you a happy evening. Thank you so much, and I really appreciate you all taking so much time. And I will connect with you offline anyways. Thank you so much, guys. Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much for having us. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Everybody.
Sure.